Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Pineapples with Pam. We're your hosts, Pat,
Andrea.
And Mike.
and we're on a mission to talk your ears off about movies today.
Uh, well, outside of just waiting for my coffee to be like officially finished being brewed, which won't be too noisy as I've already kind of prepped my mug, kind of vibe,
Uh-huh.
right? I am ready. If everyone else is, you know,
Yeah.
okay.
I'm Gucci down to the socks.
Yeah.
every I've said that a few times, and every time I say it, you always get a good chuckle out of it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll just have. I think that's a good spot to stick the intro, so we'll do that as a
Yeah.
little
Yeah. Go
pre-show.
ahead.
And here's the intro. Blah 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 blah
Whatever you
blah.
want.
And here we are. Welcome to the podcast, everybody. This is the very first episode of Pineapples with Pam. Uh, Theoretically, we're talking to somebody, but we could be talking to nobody. Hopefully, you're somebody. Today's
Yeah.
movie
Word.
and our very first choice is um, The Fifth Element. Um, I picked it. Me, Pat, picked it, and um, there are no there are spoilers for this movie. So if you haven't seen it,
Somehow.
yeah, maybe don't listen to this then. Um, or go watch it and then come back and listen.
Yes.
I think that's the better thing, right?
You're trying to avoid spoilers, and I feel like for listeners of this podcast, they were if they're going to listen to us for spoiler-free content, I don't know if that's going to be any movie we discuss. I feel like we're always going to go into spoiler territory, right? Because
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
how we end up kind of doing our thing.
Yes.
So, like, for any listeners out there, yeah, we spoil stuff, and most of the movies that we do are old, obscure, and very rarely recent. So, I'm sorry if we're spoiling a movie that is coming up on 30 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
That's true.
sorry, right? But that they're like, it's not like we're doing. If there's a recent movie, I feel like we ever do that, maybe we should really be worried about spoiler territory for people, right?
Yeah.
But if
Same.
you're listening to this, you probably know we're going to spoil stuff.
Yes.
That's my.
Yeah.
Should be obvious at this point. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And yeah, I mean, 20 years old, almost 30.
When
Sorry.
did it come out?
It's
Do
fair.
you remember?
97.
97. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit.
So, yeah. So a little bit about the movie, and a little bit about. So for me, the movie kind of holds like a special place in my heart because it was one of the first movies that I watched that like I really latched onto uh, on my own without kind of like my parents showing me a movie.
Mm.
And so when I was getting into movies like on my own, this was one of the first ones, so it kind of had a big impact. And it's later in life become a very quotable movie between some people that are important to me, and
Mm.
you know um, so usually we're gonna before each movie we're gonna do a little bit of trivia. I guess.
Oh, I have some trivia to add. Oh my goodness, do I?
Great.
Add?
I have a couple, but I think I'm just gonna kind of go with this one. That Luc Besson, or Besson, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. The director demanded that most of the action shots in the movie take place in broad daylight, as he was reportedly tired of the dark spaceship corridors and dimly lit planets common in science fiction movies, and wanted a brighter, cheerfully crazy look as opposed to a gloomy, realistic one. And I just love this little factoid. I think that that's absolutely insane, and I love him for it, that he was like, yeah, I don't want it to be realistic. I want it to be just absolutely, bonkers, and it
Mm.
shows. It comes through in like so much of the movie. So I just love that little fact.
That's awesome. That's awesome. He's French. That's why his name's Besson.
Besson.
Yeah,
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And I think that kind of lends to the oh yeah, that makes sense with the way you see the movie. Like once you know that he's French, it's like oh yeah, okay.
Very over the top, very like.
Yeah. So you ready for a couple of my little trivia's?
Yeah, yeah.
Um. Okay, so you know the when Lilu first appears, she doesn't speak any English.
Right.
Mila Jovovich did that entire language off the top of her head.
That is fantastic.
Wow, that's cool.
I
Yeah.
believe she like speaks a lot of languages too, so that's probably like why she was able to do something like that.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
interesting that you say that too, because I was listening to the language as they were speaking it, and not to, I was curious of where they would get the roots from, if there was like a consistency there, kind of thing.
Yeah, like how Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones all like, painstakingly hired linguists to create a language.
Right.
Well,
And she's
did they notice? Did they note anything about consistency in that factoid? Whether or not they tried to make the language that she speaks consistent at all, or was it off the
I
cuff?
don't know
Because I
anything
couldn't notice anything.
I don't know anything beyond that, unfortunately.
Gotcha.
That would
Well,
be really interesting to learn though. I would like to know like if she
I
wrote
just didn't
it
notice
down.
anything in my watch since you mentioned this. But I did notice that, like, when oh my God, what's the young prophets, the young preacher's name? The kid
Oh,
who's always
David.
nervous.
David.
David.
Yes, David. Thank you. So when David brings her the dresses and the clothing, she says "Danko" for, like, clearly "thank you," which
Yeah.
would have the German root. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And so it's interesting that you say that she made up the language, because I noticed things like that when I was trying to, like, interpret any kind of
Mm,
consistency in that ancient language. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Also,
Yeah.
if you remember, she's watching the computer and learning to speak English, and I guess potentially you could extrapolate that and say that she's also learning all the languages.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, she absolutely is,
Uh,
because she's doing the Matrix learning,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 exactly.
which was actually, no, technically Neo did the Fifth Element learning,
Neo
right?
did
Yeah,
the Fifth
yeah,
Element learning,
true.
man.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
you go. For the timeline of movies out there, Matrix didn't come yet out yet. Gen
Yeah.
Zers. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
So I have one more trivia piece for you.
Hmm.
I didn't check every single cast member, but I noticed a couple of them had passed on, and I was very curious to find how many. 8 of the cast members are dead now.
Wow. That's like.
Yeah.
Would you mind? Do you remember, if you can, remembering
Yep.
who of those eight?
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I wrote them all down. and their character.
Let's go. Let's go.
Great.
Luke Perry, the artist from the beginning.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. Uh,
right.
the priest in the opening scene with Luke Perry, the one with the chin strap beard.
Yep.
Oh wait, he did pass away. I thought
Yeah.
Aziz
so.
Light.
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, the professor has passed away. John Bluthal. John Bennett is the priest's name from the opening scene. John Bluthal, the professor. Aziz Light, that guy.
Yep.
He's passed away. Tiny Zeus Lister, I know you guys know him.
Yep.
The president.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Sir Ian Holm, Father Vito Cornelius.
Wait,
Wait,
really?
what? Bilbo Baggins?
Yeah, yeah,
Wait, he's passed on? When?
yeah,
What?
yeah.
Oh,
Um,
Holy shit.
that's a
and
fucking shame.
the last three that I looked up just so happened to be all three of the generals in the movie.
The
Every general is dead. There's the
like
the general that is the general of the ship that meets up with the evil planet.
In the
That
beginning, in
in
the
the
very beginning.
Yep, that guy died.
Okay.
oh yep, yep.
The general that is talking to Corbin Dallas in his apartment, that guy's dead.
Oh, the funny
Uh-huh.
comic relief one.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, the general, the guy in charge of the three military people that showed up.
Yeah, he was kind of comic
Yeah,
reliefy.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other general, I can't remember what scene he was in. He was the black general, the only black guy of the three.
Yes.
Oh, I know
I know
what
what
you're
you're talking
talking
about.
about.
They
Gotcha.
That's
showed
Gotcha.
crazy.
more towards the end, but yeah,
Interesting.
well, his name was John Neville.
Cursed movie, I guess.
Well, I mean, they all died.
I know.
I mean, people die, and some of them were pretty old when they made the film.
Yeah, yeah.
And we all
Fair.
know that their essence continues to fuel Bruce Willis, so it's all going to a good cause. You know.
He, a
Uh,
vampire, a psychic vampire that
Yeah,
lives forever.
secretly. No, I'm just joking. Obviously, that's alleged.
that's
Um,
the extent of my trivia additions.
that's
Well,
great.
thankfully that
No, that's
was
great.
good because I completely forgot to get trivia. I think I mentioned it earlier because part of my problem when I start watching movies like this, especially for a movie like The Fifth Element, which I think like really has a way of grabbing you and bringing you into this universe that they made,
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
right? Um, because I guess one thing because I just noticed that I don't know if you guys felt that there was any particular pacing issue in the movie.
Not. I don't. I don't feel that there is too much of a pacing issue.
I
So
I didn't either.
you right. So here's what's interesting though. Most of the parts that most people think of with the Fifth Element and stuff like that are over halfway through.
Uh,
I
I don't
noticed
know.
no, I know I was checking timelines as I
Okay.
was watching the movie. Now, part of it's because the way I had to watch the movie had ad breaks, right?
Yeah, that was my
Yeah,
bad. I,
Which
that's okay.
yeah,
That's all
it
right.
is what it is. I'm not going to hold it against you, obviously. You know what I mean? Like we've also seen this movie a bunch before, right? So it's not
yeah, for
like I'm
sure.
like, oh my god, they're really ruining the immersion, you know. Um, but
You
when
fucking
it comes,
nerd.
I'm sorry.
no. But since I was watching it with ad breaks, I had an opportunity to just see the timeline,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just noticing things like, all right, so for example, it's a 2 hour movie, right?
Yeah. I think.
Bruce Willis and Lilu meet in 30 minutes in, 35
Right.
minutes in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's kind of crazy to me,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you're talking about the two main characters
Yes.
finally meeting 30 minutes in, not like so I mean, and I feel like it's part of the way that because I feel like The Fifth Element's a movie that I've noticed something new in every time I watch it,
Yes.
I did find a bunch of new things this time.
right?
Didn't expect to find so many.
What were some of yours?
Hold on. I had like
Because while you look for them, I'll just say some of mine. Because, like, for example, when they are bringing Lilu in, like, alive, right? When they're recreating her body,
Yeah.
yeah,
um, the whole like they say there's a comment where they say like they're gonna be a monster. They must be a monster
Uh
or
huh.
something like that, right?
yeah.
But then the guy flicks on like a UV,
And he looks like a
and
monster.
he looks like yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh no, I did not see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he goes, yeah, can't wait
Can't
to
wait to
meet
meet
him.
him. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and it's almost
So,
kind of creepy in that regard. You know what I mean? Like it's a real flip. There's a lot of these little moments like that in the
yes.
movie. You know,
Yes.
and it's really, really interesting. And like, I don't know if you want to go through the plot of the movie at all, but technically the part that I'm speaking of is like very fresh in the beginning, technically.
Yeah,
Whether you're talking within 30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. And to
I. Go ahead. Go ahead.
to your point about the noticing that there is like a different. I don't think that it necessarily has a pacing issue. I just think that it was a different like movies at that time had a different type of pacing because like think about what this movie is. It's like really kind of stands out as like a unique like it's a sci-fi action comedy, right? But it's like so over the top, and it's like it's almost spoofing on like space operas, which like what do you really have in that category? You have like Dune, you have Star Wars, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
those
Mm-hmm.
movies are all very long, but it was an action comedy, so it like it was really its own thing, and so I think that because of that, it was like really it just did how do I say this, like it was doing something very different for its genre at the time. And I
Mm.
think that like the setup that we're used to in something longer, like a movie like Dune, like the new Dune, or even the old one, I guess, um, that's what you're seeing. Is I think that it's just like you get more time to set up the character, and like you get an idea, you really get an idea of like who Corbin Dallas is, and then you really get an idea of like what the stakes are. I think more than anything, you're just like they did a really good job of setting everything up for you so that the second and third act of the movie can really kind of go off without a hitch.
Well,
It's
it's
really,
funny. I feel like there's 4x to the movie.
huh?
Weird way. I feel like the movie spit up between 30 minutes each time, perfect 25% marker.
Okay.
It almost plays like 4 parts for me personally. But I didn't mean to cut you off, Andrea, if you had wanted to say something.
No, I was kind of just going off what Patty was saying. It's just like to me, like I feel like the pace of the movie like has a very good continuity, has a good pace.
Mm.
Like and it feels good and organic that the two main characters don't meet till later because that opening scene is a good 15 minutes long.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like, okay, so, to give listeners an idea we're talking about here. Okay, this movie, again, is 2 hours long. Okay, 2 hours, 5 minutes, including credits, stuff like that. You're usually hovering, what, like 155? Right?
Yeah.
And the movie packs a lot.
Yes. There's a
It,
lot of stuff that
It
happens.
it does,
there's
but
a lot.
it doesn't feel overstuffed. It
No, it
feels,
doesn't.
but it's
No.
fleshed out really well.
I
Yes.
agree. I agree. It's very immersive.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and I'm glad that Pat described it as a comedy action movie. Is that how they described it when it was coming out?
I
Do you
don't.
remember?
To be honest with you, I don't really know how they market it. Like if I'm looking on IMDb right now, and I don't, it just kind of says it's action adventure sci-fi. But like really, I think it should be like if I were to bill it, I would bill it as a comedy sci-fi action
Yeah,
movie.
and honestly, I feel like there are some aspects of it where if you don't know about the 90s, which is both the greatest and weirdest decade in human history, right? Which, not arguable.
Too weird too, bro.
And so I'm just saying it is both the greatest, but it's a very weird time. Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking
Yeah.
about a time where both Janko jeans and Fifth Element exist.
So
Okay. So
can I,
it's a very interesting spot in history. And I feel like this movie really epitomizes the 90s in a lot of ways.
and
Okay.
I would like to fly off of that a little bit and tell you my thing. One of the main thing that I noticed. I've noticed several things, but the one thing that hit me the most that I don't know how I didn't notice it before was there's mad non-binary representation in this movie.
Oh, yes.
There's like gender non-conformity all over the place, and I
Dude,
did not Ruby Rod is a
Ruby Rod,
non-binary character.
an icon, a fucking icon.
And yes,
Yo.
Lilu gives me some like non-binary and definitely gender non-conforming feels.
Yeah.
Mm,
Well, the
mm.
whole idea that the whole like role reversal of like her being the hero, the scene
Yeah,
where she says to him, she's like,
yeah,
"You don't worry, I protect you."
yeah,
Right.
Like that whole
yeah.
idea, that's like very like for the '90s. I guess that some of those ideas were
They
kind of coming out, but not in that
yeah.
public of a forum.
Oh
I don't
no,
think.
look, that movie has some classic uh I mean, I don't know how to describe it, but just to tell you the part that I'm talking about in terms of classic male on female things, the one of the generals and the scientists they're talking about taking pictures for the archives.
Yes,
Oh,
and but
yes,
but
yeah, yeah.
but like
You know what I'm
immediately after that, she whoops their ass.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
Just like
correct.
it does with the non-consensual kiss.
yes,
Oh, I
yeah.
love
She
that
puts a
part.
gun to it, yeah, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I should have asked. That was stupid. That
I
was stupid."
shouldn't have done that. You're right. You're right.
Yeah,
And then even asked what the translation of that phrase was, and he was like, never without my permission, and he's like, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Kind of.
yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, there's definitely a lot in there, and I'm glad that you picked up on stuff like that. First off, Ruby, amazingly enough, when I've discussed this movie with people in the past, they have hated Ruby Rod.
Oh my god, he's the best
I
part of the fucking
love
movie.
him.
He's the best
Um,
part of the
I
movie.
love Ruby Rod
I know.
personally.
my favorite character, probably hands down. Like, yeah, even before Lilu.
Well, do you have a favorite character? What are your guys' favorite character in the movie if you had to pick one?
Um, no, my favorite character is definitely Ruby Rod, with Lilu a close second.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Ruby Rod for sure.
Really,
Ruby Rod.
a
Dude,
lot of Lilu.
he's just like Chris Tucker just fucking kills that part. Like
My God,
it's so
in every scene.
every time he's
Everything.
on camera, it's just so he's like tuned all the way up to the fucking max constantly. I like
His high pitched scream.
when he's counting.
On
Yeah.
the floor. Oh my!
9. It's so good.
Pretty much, I feel like when Chris Tucker was played in that role, he must have just been told to take his character persona, like I feel like that was not to, because I actually am a huge Chris Tucker fan, the wrong way, but I feel like that role was totally typecast for him.
Oh, agreed. I love Chris Tucker as well, and nobody else would have played that role better than him.
Yes.
Right, correct. I definitely agree, but sometimes I feel like people almost feel like it is just Chris Tucker being Chris Tucker in his roles of that movie, you know what I mean?
How many
Like,
we have of Jason Statham playing Jason Statham in a movie about Jason?
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
oh, you
fine.
know what? Yes, very, very fair. And Bruce Willis himself in this movie is exactly Bruce Willis in every movie.
Yes, he's Bruce Willis in outer space.
He is Willis in space.
I think he's probably one of the most animated he's ever been in this movie.
Agreed.
Who?
Yeah,
second only to Hudson Hawk, maybe.
He definitely always plays like a more stoic, kind of like subdued version, and in this he's
all of his older roles are the stone face.
Yeah.
Roles.
You're talking about Willis?
Yeah.
Word.
About all his roles in the past like decade or 15 years.
Yep.
Like Red and even the whole 9 yards in that he's the straight guy. He's the
wow.
Guy.
I have never heard anybody else even like bring that movie up. I thought I was like the only person in the fucking 90s that's seen that movie. I love that movie.
Well,
but you're right.
On Bruce Willis, yes.
Yeah, he definitely is considerably more animated in this than he has in his past roles.
I honestly didn't think I didn't really think about it, but I guess you guys are totally right. I usually, because whenever I think of Bruce Willis, I think of his later career, not his younger career, or like most of his later stuff with Die Hard and what Die Hard became and stuff like that. Really, he kind of became his own personal trope.
Yes, yeah.
And not in a bad way either, because I every character, kind of like you were saying, Andrea, about Jason Statham in his movie line and what his archetype is, and Chris Tucker and being the kind of epitomizing himself within Ruby Rod. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's got their own archetype, but I mean, while I love Ruby Rod in every essence, I would probably say my favorite character would have to be Bruce Willis's character. What Dallas?
Dallas Corbin. Oh, Corbin Dallas.
Corbin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No. Andrea's right. It's Corbin Dallas.
Corbin Dallas. Oh, okay, right. Corbin Dallas. That's why I thought Dallas was his last name. Correct. Okay.
Texas City, Dallas.
Yeah. I think that, I've always appreciated his roles as the, kind of reluctant, shaggy, the houndrel, the hero scoundrel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he kind of has, and this to me, I think is, if not what I would believe to be the start of that trope, but certainly it in its most glorious prime.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So I definitely think that he's my overall favorite character without other side characters that I think also hold a big place in my heart. I mean, there's a lot of these little characters that are put in there anyway, because I could argue that the two technicians who are smoking weed
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
also my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Even like David and Vito Cornelius, they're both funny as hell. They both have like really good. You know, all the characters are kind of written like really well into the
Oh,
movie.
I'm
And
not gonna lie,
John
I love.
Baptiste Emmanuel Zord.
Vorg, dude.
Or no, I'm sorry, Emmanuel Jean Baptiste
He's
Zord.
so, dude. I think that's his. I think that's Gary Oldman's one of his best roles.
Yeah.
He's so fucking funny
Yeah.
and so convincing. Like the scene where he's like talking about order and chaos and
Oh my God.
life
And
and death.
Cherry.
Yes, dude, he's so convincingly a narcissist in that scene.
Oh
You're
God.
like, wow, this dude is
Yeah.
he believes it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's the scene where it really defines your love to hate him kind of vibe. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
He definitely. And what I think is so interesting, I remember watching, and of course for me, and I know for y'all as well, this is not our first time seeing this movie, right?
Right.
And I immediately think about the hubris of humanity when the movie could have ended 55 minutes in by just taking him out with the cherry.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it could have been like, oh, well, that was actually extremely convenient and not a murderer. So
Yeah.
bye bye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like they could have carried on with the plot and tried to just focus on it. But no, the hubris of trying to make an ethical point to somebody to win an argument
Yeah.
is also just a microcosm of exactly what humans do.
Right.
And he could have stopped everything, but he had to be like, well, look at what your power gets you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, it definitely is something that I feel like, any logical hero would have been like, oh shit, the villain just choked on a cherry. Sweet. Okay, let's get the.
Yeah,
Uh,
he could have just walked out of the room and been like, "Hey, I think your boss just choked to death. Like, I had nothing to do with it, but
yeah.
I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
check on him, you know."
Check the cameras, yo. I mean, like, I didn't not save him, right?
I didn't touch him. I didn't touch him.
So,
Uh,
I would like to talk a little bit about our favorite parts.
Mhm.
So, does anybody want to point out their favorite part?
oh my gosh, so many. So many.
I know.
Um,
Well, are
oh
we
God.
talking? Yeah, I guess to what I would call. I mean, I feel like the movie's personally filled with lots of little favorite parts. If you really enjoy the movie, if the movie doesn't piss you off with its action comedy '90s vibe, you know what I mean, then and you can actually enjoy the movie for what it is, which I think is a masterclass of world building
Yeah.
inside of it.
It is.
Then there are tons of little moments like the technicians who have an entire subplot in the film for 5 seconds
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, what
about getting through the day.
Corbin Dallas's mom, like you never see the woman, but you hear her on the phone.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Yeah.
And I know it's not the voice messages; those things last 1,000 years. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I love that.
Gets the president on the phone at the end. Like, come on,
Oh
clap.
my god.
The president's an idiot.
Yeah.
I-
I love. Yeah, you're right. But yes, you see what I mean. Like, there's tons of little favorite moments if you determine depending on what you think about favorite moments. But for
Yeah.
for me, the most emotional moment for me, well, I had a couple of emotional moments, but one of the big ones was the Plava Laguna.
Yes. Like
Like
that whole scene or
the
her
whole,
dying.
yeah, everything, the whole entire thing, from the moment she opens her mouth with the first note
Uh huh.
to the very end where she says her last words to
Yeah.
Corbin, everything. Like, I love the connection between her and Lilu. I love the juxtaposition of her singing over Lilu kicking ass.
Yes.
You know, like her like kind of like symbolically religious sacrifice of her body, giving up her body to protect humanity,
Yes.
Mm,
like
mhm.
everything, and including her voice, like it, the all of that stuff would not have been the same if whoever that person was singing did not sing it, because it it was just magical. It was the magic glue that binded that entire scene together.
Agreed. And
Mm.
actually, the actress, that woman, she did sing that.
Yeah,
Um,
so
but
I
it
remember.
was she sang each note individually, and it was pieced together because it's basically impossible for the human voice to like go through notes that quickly. So
Okay.
Mm.
that actress was actually the singer. So yeah, but I agree. You're totally right. I think that like that whole scene is like really very powerful.
Yeah, yeah.
What was your favorite part, Pat?
So it's funny that you said what you said, Mike, about that like there's so many little parts, because my two favorite parts of the movie are things that happen within a span of 2 seconds.
Okay.
Um, so the first one is when they're in Corbin's apartment, and they're like, dude, he's going to like everybody leaves or whatever, and all that's left is the priest. Or no, they don't. The cops leave, and he's like talking to the priest, and he's like, "Yeah, you must drink a lot of coffee being a priest, huh?" And Vito takes the trophy and clocks Corbin over the head, and the sound that Bruce Willis makes fucking kills me, dude. Every time, and like his face, I could seriously watch that 2 second clip of video
Oh,
over and over and laugh every time.
that's
And
funny.
the only thing that's better than that is the first time that Ruby Rod speaks to Corbin after the radio show has ended. The way that he walks up to Bruce Willis and does the little spin that he does, I,
Yo,
I was in tears last
I
night.
know exactly what you're talking about, yo.
The way that he walks and the way that he spins, it fucking kills me.
Well,
It
the
kills me.
spin, it's the furrowed brow that he has, like he has that look with that brow, and he just, like,
And his like big size and stuff.
yeah, yo, yeah, what a phenomenal role.
Ridiculous.
So okay, so those are your two favorite. Well, so I I never am like looking. I agree with Andrea. My favorite scene is the opera movie scene,
Oh yeah.
right? Which I think for someone like me, as I mean, you guys know me as someone very musical. I'm passionate about music, right? So as that scene is concerned, between the musical inspiration itself, right? The music itself, which goes through motions, right? And it has different steps that, like, uh, are just completely unique to all of the music inside this movie, by the way, because all the music is phenomenal, right?
Yes.
But uh, the way that it's shot and the way that it goes back and forth between the action and the music, of
Mhm.
course, now has been done many times before, but at this time was very new in its own respects,
Yeah.
especially considering the um, all the different creatures, if you will, right? That or like individuals and species, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That are interacting through this scene, right? And I was thinking that, like, out of all of the majority scenes that you could watch in the movie, you could take that one out of context and it's perfect every time.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That's yeah.
I agree. I
Like,
agree.
you know what I mean? Like just like as a music video, you
Yes.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It can be a
It
total
is,
standalone. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, it's a complete standalone piece of the movie that is just an experience in its own way. And Like
It's its
I know that you guys used
part.
the word like emotional and powerful. Did you say that you cried at that part, Andrea?
Yes, I cry most times when I watch it. Yeah,
Really?
Fuck
yeah,
yeah.
I
yeah.
mean, I cry a lot in movies, so I'm not trying to say like, oh my god, you cry, but because I'm totally someone who cries during movies. But I admit, in this movie, I don't cry, and it's too the acting is not the kind that will make me cry. The cinematography is not one that evokes that emotion out of me. But out as far as what I would call a pure, not to use the word again, but a master class of cinema in 5 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's a combination of like everything that scene is.
Mm,
I always cry when she gets shot and Lilu cries.
Mm,
Like it,
yeah.
mm.
yeah, the whole thing, the abruptness of how it ends, and the like shock of how when you realize how connected they were, and like all of that like gets to me, and then I always cry at the end too sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm not like a super I cry at everything, but yeah, there's some stuff out there that gets me here and there.
Interesting. Well, I just was kind of a little surprised at the Fifth Element because
Yeah,
I just feel like there's a lot of out of all the movies that I definitely have cried at. I mean, like first off, we know Everything Everywhere All at Once. I cry pretty much throughout most of the movie.
Yeah.
oh, I'm
Yeah.
so glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up because I see a connection between this movie and Everything Everywhere All at Once. That,
Interesting.
that
Please
Okay.
tell us about that. Yeah, I'd like to hear about
the
what you.
the theme of the movie, like itself, like that I like generally like had an idea of before, but it really hit home when I realized that there's three parallel scenes in this movie. Um, the one of the statue in the beginning with its face raised and you're looking down at it from above.
All right.
The one then when Ruby Rod gives that girl an orgasm on the plane,
Uh
they,
huh.
they do the
Okay.
same and she does the same expression with her face.
Oh wow.
Okay.
And
Wow.
then Lilu at the end when is
Yes.
holding her up, it's three of the same thing. And they kind of say at one point in the movie, somebody says evil begets evil, and then in my head, like I immediately finished the sentence with the world needs more love, like because that
Mm,
triggered everything at the end was the love.
Yeah.
And that's what Everything Everywhere All at Once was had very much to do with, was how much like you keep people keep doing evil things, it's evil things are going to keep happening, but if you put that love out there, then love, like the world needs more of that.
I mean, yeah, that's like,
well, it's
yeah,
certainly one of the things that that movie tackles. And what look when we eventually actually do a full episode on that movie, that one will we will have to make sure we set aside enough time.
I think we're
yeah.
like
Okay. I have a lot to say about
That's
that movie,
that's
yeah,
including
a
what you said, including what you just made that nice connection with, which I think is actually a very interesting analogy because
yeah.
I never would have made a thought of a connection between those two
Me
movies.
neither.
And Everything Everywhere All at Once is my new favorite movie of all time. You know what I
I
mean? Like,
That's definitely going to be like a multi-episode. I don't
yeah, I
think we
feel like
can
that.
do that
Yeah,
in one take.
correct. And
yeah, yeah,
especially within our normal time frame of about, call it hour and a half that we're trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
That is really interesting though, Andrea, and I think that that's like I think that kind of actually, if anything, sort of speaks to the directors of Everything Everywhere kind of just really tapping into like the movies and pop culture that
Yeah,
that
yeah,
left big
mm,
footprints. And I do, for the record, like I unironically, I think that this movie, I think that The Fifth Element, to kind of keep it on this movie, like I unironically think that it is a masterpiece. I
yeah.
actually do. Like,
Oh yeah.
and
It's
it
not
also
a,
tie.
I'm
Sorry, go on.
the question that we have in our thing, would you change anything in the movie? Absolutely not. It wouldn't. There's not a single thing
Yeah.
I would change.
I really tried to find something and I couldn't. I
Yeah,
couldn't find anything that I didn't like about this movie. And
even the things that I'm like annoyed by, like I know why it happens.
right, yes,
Like it makes sense.
yeah, I have a note in here about not liking the escape scene with the clock counting down. I don't like when they do that in movies, but I understand why they did it, and it makes sense in the context of the movie. So, like, I can't even hold it against the writing.
Right.
You know, And one of the things that I noticed about the movie that I had never really, like, I guess, like, consciously been aware of, is how the sound design for this movie is amazing. The sound design is made to enhance the comedic timing of all of the jokes, and it works every time. There's so many
Mm.
tiny little sound effects that, like, go off right at the punchline. And it like when Corbin gets fired, the guy,
Oh
he's
my
like,
god.
I bet you lunch. And he
Yeah,
opens it up and
yeah,
he's like, you are fired. And the cat goes meow. And, like, dude, it's so corny, but it's so fucking funny. And, like,
yeah.
that's the kind of stuff, like, the visual editing with the sound design is, like, so well done.
Dude, how well those practical special effects
Yes,
still
yes,
hold up
yes, yes,
so
yes.
well.
Preach,
Fucking
preach.
almost 30 years later, man. Like, I loved all their creature designs and every, like, all of their weird set pieces, and any in-camera effect that they did looks flawless. And
Yes.
even a lot of their computer effects still look good. Like, I think a couple of times I noticed like green screen looking things, but other than that, it is really still very good looking movie.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's because they made the wise choice to only really use CG to enhance, not to
Yes.
act, right. So, like, all and that's one of my notes, is that, like, the practical effects are so amazing. You have these awesome set pieces, these giant set pieces, like the scene where all the explosions happen and Ruby Rod's screaming at the end, the opera scene, like, all these amazing set pieces, the aliens, all of them, like Mike, you were saying earlier, they're like that scene where you see all these different aliens. Every single one of them looks different. Even even the Montechiwa and the ugly dudes with the big green ears and they stank, like, those guys, they all look different.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
all very different looking, and it's like that goes such a long way. It
Yeah.
goes such a long way.
Their creative team was
Yeah, I would absolutely agree that. Well, all right. Well, I didn't know how to answer the what would you change in the movie, because there are some things that I think that the movie wouldn't necessarily have to do without, like, I mean, I don't know. I also think that while it does remain in context of the movie with the whole escaping the building within a certain time limit trope, right? That it didn't have to be written out that way, but there were also, I get conflicted when I look at some of the acting of that time and trying to balance that with knowing that it's a comedy-ish movie.
mm.
So who did you take issue with in terms of their acting?
Not issue. Well, that's the thing. There's no issue with whether or not I would change something in the movie. Is also not really my thing. I'm trying to, like, watch what they want to watch me to have me watch, right? I'm not trying to watch someone's movie and be like, here's my projection onto that movie.
Right.
But you know
Right.
what I mean. So I'm trying to think about how I would do explain. All right, so here would be an example. Some things that, to me, I'm trying to watch everything within context of the movie, right? So think about how the movie starts, and you think about how it takes us through it. It starts very much like a dramatic space opera. Okay,
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
whole opening scene is like an homage to Alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
and it doesn't have a lot of. And while it does have some minor, it kind of almost plants seeds of its humor with the drinking of the glass and let's toast and, like,
Hmm.
him taking his time. The outside of some very minor moments, there's not a lot of humor. It takes itself very seriously in the beginning, right? Um, at least it seems that way. And based off of watching movies from that time period, Fifth Element is not the only movie that suffers from that, almost like trying to be serious, but they're also, like, not able to be, based off of the technology and attitude of the time, and kind of like the Casey Jones effect. and
I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
oh, someone who's like just like super badass and awesome, but specific to that time period.
Like you're talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Reference.
You know what I mean? Because he kind of he is another person who it kind of embodies the spirit of the '90s sports genre kind of thing, right? Like,
Yeah. All right. The more I think about it, the more I feel like that's pretty accurate.
you know what I'm saying? Like, no one nowadays goes like, you know who's like my inspiration? Casey Jones. You know
Right.
what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh God.
So amazing character, but specific to the time period. The Casey Jones effect.
So,
Right.
but okay. So let me ask you. Like, you're saying that do you feel that the tone is misrepresented early on, and you don't like that?
Not even that. Sometimes the tone almost, it's nowadays. It's almost like it felt like I don't know if you guys noticed this, but in any way, but sometimes it felt to me like it was pre-Marvel humor,
Um.
like the kind of humor that Marvel now kind of has run into the ground, which is something kind of serious is happening,
Yeah.
but
So
then there's a quip
yeah.
or a thing, right?
Okay.
But that's
And
very specific to Marvel comics in general, anyway.
wait, what?
That's like a specific like that. Marvel comics were like that.
Well, correct. I mean, Marvel comics were like that, but in the cinematic experience is what I mean, right? Because
Yeah.
obviously then a lot of movies started pulling from that in other
Oh,
genres,
I see what you mean.
right?
Yeah.
And so like in the Fifth Element, obviously it's nowhere near as obvious as it's become nowadays, right? Uh, but sometimes because the movie sometimes wants to take itself so seriously, but then also very equally not take itself so seriously.
Yes.
The acting sometimes throws me off guard between the kind of physicality and nature, you know what I mean, to it all, right? So, like, for example, we're supposed to be taking kind of seriously the escape of Lilu
Right.
after she's made, right?
Right. Well, yeah.
But those cops, at least in the beginning of the chase scene,
Yeah.
they like kind of out of nowhere, even though I was kind of taking seriously what's happening, right?
Mhm.
It then throws me off with that humor bit where they're like, "Freeze! Do you understand me?" She doesn't understand me, and it kind of has the generic schlubby cop looking guy saying it kind of thing, right?
Yeah. But
And it kind of just kind of sometimes, and it's not bad acting in there. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not an issue that I have. Just sometimes I feel like uh in comparison to other movies I've seen, maybe the rewatching this kind of made me feel like this is a perfect movie for its time period.
yes.
And watching some of it now, I can't say it's still to this day a perfect movie, but certainly a perfect movie for its time
Okay.
because of that. You know
That,
what I mean?
yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
There's
I
nothing like that.
yeah.
And
I
obviously, I'm not trying to convince you guys to agree with me. I'm just, trying to throw out my vibes out there. And I love the movie so much. It certainly remains one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm not trying to take it away, but I'm trying to answer the questions of things that we've always tried to think about when we're watching these movies, right? Moving
yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
which
It's
is like, would you change something? And I'm like, I don't know. Would I maybe have tried to lean in more in the humor and not try and take it so seriously at certain points? Or would I have tried to lean into the seriousness and not try to be so humorous in certain times?
it's I think it's this I think that it's very interesting that you're saying this because I put in my notes the exact thing that you just said as a reason why I love it. My,
Interesting.
yeah, my exact note reads that there's a constant push pull between how serious everything and how absolutely fucking goofy it is. The lighting, camera angles, and dialogue is very serious, but the acting is so funny and campy, and I love that. I love that. I love that it's like they're presenting it to you the way it looks visually. Everything's like super serious.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
And
then
Yeah.
you have Corbin Dallas saying, "You must drink a lot of coffee as a priest." Like, what the fuck does that mean?
Right, but that's also kind of what, well, granted, maybe not that exact example, but that is also kind of what I mean. You know what I mean? So it is an interesting thing because I don't dislike it, but I definitely think it maybe has, uh, allowed me to view. And again, this is maybe I guess more through a critical view, but because I love the movie so much. But there are some
I,
times where maybe some of that campiness stretches a little farther than just good humor, right? And not to say it's bad humor per se, but that, when I think of the way that Everything Everywhere All at Once handles humor, right?
yeah.
Versus a movie that like this, like that handles humor when they both can have their own similarities between whatever, right? If you ever wanted to try and make an analogy to anything where they have a certain type of humor in the movie, I feel like the campiness with maybe that's what it is. Did you use campiness on your notes?
Yeah. The word can't. Yeah, that
You
Yeah.
use the word campy?
Yeah.
Because I would probably say that the campiness specifically, while it adds its charm to the movie, and I'm not certainly not taking that away, right? There is a charm that the campiness brings, right?
I hear you, but here's where I'm at. I'd feel like if you tried to go in more in one direction or the other, you're not making this movie.
Yes. I think you
Well,
lose
that's
all the
part of my
magic.
conflict. Well, remember, and I think you're absolutely right, Andre, and I think that's why I prefixed when I was talking about like how I could even answer that movie about what I would change because I don't know if I could change anything,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
yeah. I don't.
Because of what you just said. If I try to, it doesn't become the same movie that has the same effect, and there are a lot of parts of that movie that almost similar to Everything Everywhere All at Once. I would say it's funny that you made that analogy because the more I pull that thread, I'm like this Fifth Element combines a lot of genre
Yeah,
into it, right?
Yes.
This, I'm not quite as the same way as Everything Everywhere All at Once, but
yeah.
it certainly is a similar in that regard, where it's a multi-genred experience,
Yeah.
right?
Right, right.
I think that there are many moments throughout the movie where, when it gives it to you, you're like, well done,
Yeah.
right, kind of thing.
Now that you
Um,
said it, I think that's like another like high mark in the favor of like good parallels of these two movies, because the Fifth Element needs the camp. Like the camp in Fifth Element is the absurdity in Everything Everywhere All.
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
word. I can almost see that. I mean, I would analyze that a little more. I like that. I like that concept, though. I like where you're going with that, fam. Um, I mean, because look, I'm not. It's hilarious because this episode can almost be called Fifth Element or the prior to or the prefix to everything. You know what I mean? But
I would say Hitchhiker's Guide would definitely
I
be
agree.
more of a prequel, if anything. But
Matrix and Hitchhiker's Guide
yeah.
with, you know what I mean? Yes, 100%.
I'm
Like,
curious to know if there's any crossover in like I don't know, like producers or something in the two movies.
Ooh. Andrea,
Yeah.
we're gonna find that out right now. I'm looking right now at like the fucking, let's see, like producers and shit. What I we what about you though? Like, do you feel like there was something that you would have changed, or do you feel like it's good as is?
who?
Me.
Andrea, yeah.
I feel like it's perfect for its time and it's still perfect now. You can't I feel exactly as I said. You cannot change anything in this movie because you are making a different movie.
Yeah.
If you change it, if you
Mm.
make it more serious, it's a different movie. If you try to make it, more campy, it's a different movie. And
Yeah, no, yeah,
it,
word. Yeah.
and I would not like either of those movies as much as I like this movie.
Word. That's
Yeah.
certainly fair. That's certainly fair.
Because also, I like on that note, like I think that like we've gotten like right. Okay, so you have Bruce Willis, you have Mila Jovovich, you have Gary Oldman. They've all been in fucking serious movies. We don't need any more. We're
Yeah,
not watching this movie because we want more serious Bruce Willis. You
yeah.
watch this movie because you want, that.
The
Uh,
light
what was
title.
the word you used, Mike? What was the houndrel?
Scoundrel. Yeah,
Yeah, you want.
the hero scoundrel, yo,
Yeah.
Han Brolo, you know what I mean? Like you got all these people that are the houndrels,
Yeah.
yo.
So, and you want. Well, I feel like actually Mila Jovovich is always just a badass.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I don't know. I think that I think that it's perfect, like right in the middle there where it exists.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
I mean, well, what would you give the rating? If you did you have to do we have to rate this movie?
I
I
was just gonna say,
that was the end of our.
Yeah,
yeah,
do we have to rate this movie, right?
I've been thinking about
Balls.
ways to rate a movie, right? Like, what do we say? Like, do we give it like 10 paper clips? But
10 pineapples, bitches.
exactly. I was like, we're called Pineapples with Pam. Why the fuck are we trying to think of anything else? It's pineapples. It's
Yeah.
out of 10 pineapples. How many fucking pineapples is the movie? I give it 11 out of 10
And
pineapples.
Amazing. I give it 11 out of 10 pineapples.
11 out of 10.
I give it a 9 pineapples out of 10
Oh,
pineapples.
Wow.
you scoundrel.
Yeah.
You know, well, I'm not going to split fruit. That's a waste of fruit. Okay. I'm not going to be that guy who says 9.5 pineapples out of 10 pineapples. I'm going to
You
deal with
forgot.
solid fruit here. Okay. That's probably my first rule that I'm going to have as the first episode of this podcast for me is that I deal with whole fruit, right? And and I will not go above 10. Okay.
All right.
And
Fine.
considering my so those are my two personal rules on this. You guys can break 10 if you want to and start adding 110% marks and shit. Look.
All right.
But considering what I will again, to me, an absolutely, like, there will be certain movies that I will wait for tens because I don't want to just start being a 10 whore, right?
Hey, man, look.
I know that this is one of your favorite movies, so I'm not surprised that you gave this a 11 out of 10, baskets of fruit, okay? Because you would have, if you could, you would have been like, bro, I'll take 10 pineapples, put them in a basket, take another pineapples, put them in another basket,
Yo,
and that's how many
it.
pineapples this movie's getting,
That's
okay?
Serves. Why do you have to be all like the contrarian?
No, I'm not. A 9 out of 10 is not a far from a contrarian.
Yeah,
Yo,
totally are. You had to fuck it all.
yo.
Just shitting
First
all
off,
over our basket of
we're already
pineapples, man.
first
Yeah.
off, we're already starting the conspiracies because 9/11, okay, is
It was
never forget. Okay.
Why?
So what I'm just saying here is this. I will not break 10, and I'm trying, and I'm at least on the first episode. Again, I said the Fifth Element is a perfect movie. It's time. I could rewatch it 100 times, and while I feel like I pick up new things from it, sometimes I feel like it. There are moments where I'm like, all right, well, maybe that hasn't quite aged well. At the same time, again, that tug of war, and this is from a critical eye, not the. If I'm going to be keep it a buck, my inner child gives it 10 pineapples. The critic in me gives it 9 pineapples.
You
okay?
heard it here, folks. 10 pineapples from all three of us.
No, get the critic
oh,
gives it 9. Okay, so
work your editing magic.
That's it.
yeah,
It's gonna be like Mike's gonna be like in the middle of a sentence, and he's like, "And I give it 10 pineapples."
yeah, exactly. And you're gonna chop it up, and the whole conversation just being like, this movie is the greatest, glorious
Yeah.
masterwork of all time. Fifth Element, we're talking about, everybody. So. But yeah, for real, it obviously is one of my favorite movies. I've seen it. I don't think I've seen it as much as Pat has, but I've seen it at least 8 times.
Yeah.
at least 8 full wash throughs. You know what I mean? Full
Yeah.
wash throughs.
I must have seen it 20 times at least.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Over the years, yeah. I used to watch it a lot. Like we had it on VHS, and that was like
Oh, word.
one of
Yeah.
the movies that was like on constant rotation. And
Yeah.
then like later in life, Dave and I, it became like a thing between Dave and I, and we would like
Wait,
watch it anytime we hung out.
you can't just
Mm,
without specifying which Dave.
My cousin Dave.
Oh,
cousin Dave. I'm assuming cousin Dave, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we, yeah, I know we have so many Daves.
Far must specify.
But yeah, this is I without I know we are kind of like coming up on a little bit of a time limit here, so I would say that thank you for listening, everyone. Thanks for giving us a chance to talk your ear off, and that's it. That's Pineapples with Pam, episode 1. See you
Yeah.
later.
See you later. Peace. Go
And
watch